Across Central Oregon, Wednesday was bringing the heat. That's right, and our heating trend is not over yet. However, tomorrow is when it peaks, and then by Friday, our next system rolls through the Pacific Northwest. This brings us a chance of some showers, and we have a very low risk of thunderstorm activity. But this next system is going to trigger a big dip in temperatures, knocking us back down into the 80s. Hey everyone, good evening. I'm Darrell Winninger, the Chief Meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News, and we are about to take a deep dive into your most reliable forecast. We're going to look at how the setup looks right now, what comes next, when those changes take place, and then when we get back into the 80s. All that and more here through the next several minutes, so buckle up. It's going to be fun. We're starting off with water vapor and pressure. Pressure is on here by those white lines, those solid white lines. Those are isobars, and that's a constant line of constant pressure. And then the yellows and the blues, that's where we have some moisture in the air, is where it's blue, even white and green. In that yellow area, that is just a very dry air mass. And so over Central Oregon, we have a whole lot of dry air. And earlier today, there were some light clouds pushing through. Those have moved north, and we're left under a broad ridge of high pressure and a lot of that dry air. But that same plume of moisture that's already coming into parts of Central Oregon and the Pacific Northwest is part of a much bigger low. This area of low pressure is going to be our next game changer. It's tucked right to the south and southeast of a broad ridge of high pressure that's anchored over the Pacific Ocean. And it is about halfway between Hawaii and California, except it's moving a little bit further to the north, so not even halfway between anymore, and it's continuing to book it further to the north and the east. And then by the time we get to Friday, that is just going to roll right through Central Oregon, almost following that line that's already set up. And what that means is it's bringing us some subtropical moisture. Now, it's not a strong system. We're not looking at a washout rain event or even scattered or widespread thunderstorms, but some showers are going to be possible. In this current setup, any showers that pop up, we're going to be tracking for the potential of thunderstorm activity. Now today, that chance, that risk of thunderstorm activity is much lower than it was even 24 hours ago, but it's still going to be that most active time is going to be Friday during the PM hours, going into the overnight, and then clearing on Saturday. But at this time, most of the precipitation is going to be west of the Cascades. Here's what it looks like east of the Cascades and through the mountains. We have very little cloud cover on the high desert. There is a whole lot of smoke out there, and several of our Oregon Hazard Lab cameras, the fire detection cameras, are continuing to work really hard for us. They're just not picking up on any new or existing smoke plumes, but we can see the smoke particulates in the air. We can see that haze. That haze is smoke from nearby wildfires, and it's continuing to impact our air quality. Now, the Grizzly Mountain camera has been very hard to even see through the last couple of days. It's improved a little bit, and it's back online. When we look at the Powell Butte camera, that one also has taken its turns pointing out towards the Roe Creek complex, and as of right now, it's just showing a lot of that smoke over the high desert. And a lot of the smoke that's in the air is coming from two different sources. One of those, the Grasshopper Fire that's just east of Mount Hood, and just to the southwest of that, there is the Austin Fire. It's this little area right here. If you follow my pointer from my mouth, find Detroit, go just to the north a little bit to the east. That's where the Austin Fire is, and that's where the smoke has just been pouring into Central Oregon. And as of right now, good to moderate air quality for most, unhealthy for sensitive groups for some. But look at this. Earlier today, at 7 a.m., we started off with just poor air quality, especially in Prineville. And there were some real-time sensors that were still at this time showing poor air quality in Redmond. It worsened at times, but then it started to get better, and now more of that smoke is starting to roll in. So when we look at our weather alerts, there is an air quality alert. This is issued by the DEQ, and it's in effect for Crook, Jefferson, and Wasco County. So Hood River County is no longer included in this, and at this time, it's until noon on Friday, and then we could be starting to get some changes. Some of those changes could be good, others could be not so good. Let's talk about it. There is a fire weather watch that's going to be in effect for Friday. Right now, it's just issued. It goes into effect at 9 a.m. and continues into the evening hours, and this very well could be upgraded to a red flag warning before we get there. And there's a heat advisory near Ontario going down the 84 corridor into Idaho, and that's from noon Thursday until 8 p.m. on Friday. But those are the only weather alerts. None of them are in effect for Central Oregon. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we did catch a red flag warning, especially through the day on Friday, especially on the east slopes of the Cascades and the west slopes of the Cascades, and let's just say it west of the mountains. I'll show you what I'm talking about here through the next couple of minutes. But as of our smoke forecast model, it shows that the bulk of this smoke is indeed coming from that Austin fire. Now, a couple other fires are still producing smoke, including the Hague fire way up in the northeastern corner of the state, and a little bit of smoke coming off of the Roe Creek complex fire, sorry. And then here through the rest of this evening, that smoke spreads out a lot and brings us some poor air quality. And then through the overnight hours, that settles in once again. And by tomorrow, we continue to get this pattern repeating. And it repeats through Thursday, but then Friday. Friday's the day that we get a shift in our weather pattern. Friday is the day that a lot of us have been waiting for. And Friday is the day that, quite frankly, we're going to begin our next cooling trend. As of right now, though, satellite and radar not showing anything at all across the state. No clouds, no rain. And when we look at the enhanced infrared satellite imagery, it's showing much the same. If you remember, when we were looking at the water vapor imagery, right here, there was a little bit of moisture. Now, that's barely registering as cloud cover right now. And here's that next system that's out over the Pacific Ocean, about even with, in latitude, even with Sacramento and San Francisco. Now, this isn't really impacting the California coastline, but by the time it rolls in to the Pacific Northwest, it looks like the center of circulation is going to cut just to the north of Seattle. And if that happens, we're not looking at much in the way of precipitation, but some parts of the state will. Some parts of the Pacific Northwest will. So here, through the overnight hours, not much happening. We have some PM clouds Thursday, and then by Friday, that's when we get into this next system rolling through. But even at 3 p.m., it's still going to be mostly dry. So this is not a strong system. Most of the activity happening on the other side of the Cascades and continuing through Friday night west of the mountains. So for the rest of this evening, temperatures fall out of the 80s through the 70s, the 60s, and into the 50s. It goes from hot to warm to mild tonight, and more smoke is expected. And then through the day on Thursday, we're topping out well into the 90s. Today we were mostly in the lower to mid 90s with a few we got triple digits in Warm Springs. It got up to 100 degrees. And going forward through the next couple of days, it's still going to be pretty hot Thursday, still going to be pretty hot Friday, just not as hot as Thursday. But notice that the UV intensity dips down to high and picks back up Saturday and Sunday. And then all said and done, when it comes to precipitation between now and Saturday at 11 p.m., most of the rain is around the Puget Sound through Washington, east of the Cascades and west of the Cascades, and then through Oregon west of the Cascades. But let's go ahead and take a step back. Let's go ahead and talk about temperatures, because here in current conditions, because here through the day today, it got pretty hot. Our temperatures topped out well above average for this time of the year. And the next couple of days, more heating is expected, and then we start to see that next shift in our weather pattern. So let's go ahead and just look at a couple of different products here. We're going to start off with that relative humidity. It is they really quickly went through. There we go. Relative humidity is bone dry. We have lower teens and single digits. Today, we topped out well into the 90s. One spot hit 100 degrees. That's Warm Springs. Now going forward, it gets even hotter tomorrow. So at the moment, we had a bump in temperatures. It's running 2 to 8 degrees warmer than it was on Tuesday, and current temperatures are not too far from those highs from today. There's one spot that's quite a bit lower. Sun River is at 86 degrees, but ultimately we are looking at more heating tomorrow, more smoke in the air, and then on Friday, we start to get that next dip in temperatures. They come back down into the lower 90s with some upper 80s. And there is a risk of some isolated thunderstorms through the day tomorrow. And then by Saturday, our cooling trend bottoms out. But look at that. It puts us right on target for this time of the year for a couple of days. So no longer well into the 90s, no longer looking at mid to upper 90s like we have tomorrow. And today, it was just hot again. And so we get that next dip in our temperatures. So let's look at some of the forecast model guidance that we have. Here is that next system way out over the Pacific Ocean, way off the California coastline, about parallel with San Francisco. And that's going to work its way directly to the northeast. And it comes into the area by the time we get to Friday. So Thursday, increasing clouds in advance of that system. By Friday, watch real closely. Some sprinkles showing up during the early afternoon hours on the east slopes of the Cascades and a little bit through the Maori Mountains and the Ochakos. And then it's over. So some showers are possible, but any showers that develop are going to be tracking for thunderstorm activity. More activity happens west of the Cascades through the early morning hours. So we're talking a night rain event and more thunderstorms through western Washington. We're talking Olympia through Seattle, getting up into Bellingham, past almost going all the way up into Canada. And so that means from Olympia through Burlington and even Bellingham, there is going to be a risk of thunderstorm activity tomorrow, but that's in Washington. Overnight, or not tomorrow, but Saturday, and that's in Washington. But overnight, Friday evening through Friday night, some of those showers, some of those thunderstorms west of the Cascades in Oregon. Now, our forecast model, the GFS, this is the long-range forecast model. It shows that we're continuing the same path, and this has less of a signature when it comes to any rain at all in central Oregon on Friday, and then the same activity working its way through the Olympic Peninsula on Saturday, and then early next week back to more sunshine and cloud cover, back to our next heating trend. But let's look at the GFS from a different perspective. This long-range forecast model shows that next low rolling in and making landfall right around the Olympic Peninsula. That's why they're actually getting that chance of thunderstorm activity. If this system dips any further to the south or the east, any closer to us, we could be looking at that potential of thunderstorm activity. But since it jogged a little bit further to the west, it looks like it's going to be skipping us, but we have a chance of some showers. And again, any showers that develop, we're tracking for thunderstorm activity. Then we turn our attention to another system that at that time will be well over the Gulf of Alaska. By Monday, it starts to work its way a little further to the south and the southeast, and then it recurves back into Canada. This could bring us additional clouds. This could bring us a little dip in temperatures, and this one could be another system that if it dips any further south could impact us, but that's so far out we're not even worried about. So rain chances, not much happening. But then by the time we get to Friday night going into Saturday, that's when we actually get some showers, that low risk of any thunderstorm activity, and winds are just going to be gusty at times. Right now, gusts are between 15 and 20 miles per hour. Actual winds, more like 5 to 15 miles per hour. And this is the strongest winds of the day. They're just not that impressive. However, it's bone dry. Any fires that start are likely to spread rapidly, and the next 3 hours is when we have the strongest winds, the highest potential for any kind of spread. But then by Thursday, mostly just a light breeze. By Friday, a light breeze becoming breezy during the mid-afternoon going into the evening hours. That's when wind speeds are going to be at their highest. But it really looks like this next system on Friday isn't going to do much other than bring our temperatures down. So for tonight, 50s with some 40s on the map and smoke in the air again. By Thursday, we're talking mid to some upper 90s. A few triple digits expected. And that's going to be the hottest day out of the next 7. After that, we get a dip in temperatures with that next system Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday back in the 80s. Monday and Tuesday, though, either side of 90 degrees and still bone dry. That's the latest in weather. Here's a quick rundown of your weather headlines for this Wednesday, August 19th. 90s continue, and it's going to be very dry through the rest of this work week. Friday starts the pattern flip. That's when we have a chance of some showers. It's not going to be for everybody, though. And then weekend relief is on the way, and that relief comes in the way with a dip in temperatures. It's going to be pleasantly warm in the 80s by the time we hit this weekend. That is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. Our next show is at 6 o'clock. We'll have the latest headlines and news and your most reliable forecast. See you then.